Donald Trump praising the perks of being a dictator. In this case, Kim Jong-un wanting, quote, my people to show the same type of deference that Kim enjoys in North Korea. The comment was made one day after footage was released of Trump saluting a North Korean general. Footage reportedly played heavily on North Korean state TV. This was Trump's response when the media, who Trump calls America's biggest enemy, pushed back on his apparent autocrat envy.
What did you mean just now when you said you wished Americans would sit up at attention when you...
I'm kidding. You don't understand sarcasm. Who are you with? Wait. Who are you with?
No.
Who are you with? You're with CNN?
Wait,
You are the worst.
Joining me now is Malcolm Nance of the Terror Asymmetrics Project, Sarah Kendzior, journalist and scholar of authoritarian states, and Trita Parsi of the National Iranian American Council. Thank you all for being here. Sarah, I'm going to come to you on this first because this is what your study is about. Donald Trump definitely seems to admire the fact that Kim Jong-un has absolute power. And he even made some comments about Kim being able to kill people. I mean, just the idea that he just had absolute power over his people, the fact that they showed fervor, they have to, not, you know, they don't have a choice. But there is something to that, and it does seem to be consistent, no?
Yeah, this is how Trump has behaved his entire life. It's how he behaved when he was running for office. These rallies he had were typical of a demagogue, and during that time, he was praising dictators. He praised Gaddafi. He praised Saddam Hussein. He, of course, praised Putin, who is his backer. He's praised Duterte. He praised various proto-fascists that were running for office in Europe. This is his ideal way of ruling. And the thing is we are way past hypotheticals. We are way past wondering how he would govern if he gets in. We know how he would govern. He would govern with children snatched from their parents and put into camps. He would govern by attacking freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, the judiciary, and he is governing without anybody checking him, with the GOP being absolutely complicit in these policies. So if you think that Trump will not try to establish a state of control over American citizens similar to that of Kim Jong-un and of other dictators, you're wrong. He will absolutely try. He will keep going, and the more that he's under pressure during this probe, the harder he will attempt to consolidate his power.
Yeah, you know, Trita, you know, to be honest, you know, about American foreign policy, the United States government has in the past suborned dictators, you know, and, you know, they were sort of a dictator who we felt could bring stability. Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, we, you know, were fine with for many years. I mean, the United States has not, you know, we changed the regime in Iran from Mossadegh, who was democratically elected, and put someone in who was an autocrat, right? So it's not as if the United States has never before aligned itself with dictatorial regimes. I think the difference is the sort of affirmative praise that you hear coming out of Donald Trump. So I wonder when other countries that we are attempting to either, you know, negotiate with in the world, or that we're trying to prevent them from sort of expanding things like nuclear ambitions. I'm thinking Iran, I'm thinking other countries in the Middle East, etc. When they listen to Donald Trump praise someone like Kim Jong-un in this way, in your view, what do you think they hear, and what does that do to their policies toward us? How do they act in the world differently?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we can take some of the allies of the United States. You now have a crown prince, an absolute dictator in Saudi Arabia that is very close to Trump. Trump seems to admire just as much as he admires other dictators. Now, they're saying that, look, what's wrong with an absolute monarchy? In the past, the Saudis tended to say, oh, we're moving slowly in our own pace towards greater freedom and opening. But now, with the way that Trump is behaving, it's much easier for them to come and say, you know what, there's nothing wrong with absolute dictatorship and monarchy in Saudi Arabia. So that's one thing. You have dictators that are allies of the United States that now see themselves as having a support in the United States to continue with dictatorial policies. And then you have enemies or rivals of the United States that see this and also recognize that Trump's admiration for power and unconstrained power is part of the reason why he is essentially letting the North Koreans get away with a lot, while at the same time he is killing the Iran nuclear deal. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people in Iran right now are thinking that they should have gotten a nuclear weapon before they went to the negotiation table, rather than just having enrichment.
Yeah, it is interesting, Malcolm, that Donald Trump admires certain autocratic regimes and not others. The Iran deal, I feel, in a way, just based on the sort of evidence, it's also tied him in the fact that it was President Obama who negotiated the Iran deal, so that there's nothing good about that deal in his view. But I wonder if now we have seen North Korean state television replay over and over and over Donald Trump saluting that North Korean general. They obviously can hear him praising people like the autocrat in Saudi Arabia, people like Kim Jong-un, people like Xi Jinping of China, people like, of course, Vladimir Putin. So I wonder, as intelligence services around the world, as the North Korean intelligence services then think, okay, how do we deal with this president? How much does this weaken the United States' sort of power to deal with these regimes?
Oh, it weakens the United States greatly. Over the last year, we have seen regime after regime, and that's a good word for these governments. They are regimes who have figured out Donald Trump, unlike every president from Washington to Obama, who have maintained America's power, authority, and dignity in terms of democracy. These regimes have figured out Donald Trump can be bought. I mean, just straight up purchased. And you either purchase him through either money or you purchase him by massaging his ego. And we saw it with Saudi Arabia. He was going to Saudi Arabia. He was speaking badly about Muslims. He gets there. He's lavished with attention and luxuries at the highest level. And he comes back their absolute best friend. Kim Jong-un and every other intelligence agency in the world has evaluated Donald Trump as an easy mark. And this is the kind of guy you want in your casino, right? And if you want to lure him in there, you lure him in there with the things that he most cherishes, which is enriching himself, enriching his family, and not meeting the values of the United States by showing that you are an authoritarian.
And, Sarah, what's interesting is, you had in France, Donald Trump initially was warm toward Emmanuel Macron. He showed him a big military parade, and Trump really admired that. There was the weird handshakes. But then he just comes back from this summit in Canada and again is completely distanced again from not just France, but all of our Western allies. And I think these other countries, our allies also see that he can turn his base against Canada, right? That he can actually turn his base against these countries as well. So I'm wondering, where do we stand in the global alliances if our allies not only watch Donald Trump sort of turn on them, but also a portion of the American people?
I think it's hard to tell at this point how the American people feel. I live in a red state, I live in a state that voted for Trump, and I don't think that people are particularly happy about these trade policies, especially with Canada, because it's going to affect them economically. I'm not sure people are willing to label Canada the enemy. That's a bridge too far. But I do think that, this view that Trump has of our traditional Western allies as our enemies and as of dictatorships as our new allies is going to have repercussions beyond Trump's tenure in office. This is a realignment. There is no real reason for our traditional allies to trust us anymore. We have not kept our word. And this is an issue where other people in the Trump administration, beyond Trump himself, should really be speaking out forcefully if they disagree with Trump's policies. And they have not been doing so. They have been treating Trump like a dictator, which is exactly how he wants to be treated.
And Trita, there's also the fact that Donald Trump seemed to have given away quite a bit, ending our exercises with South Korea, et cetera. So when the world's powers see that he talks quite tough, but in the end doesn't really get much, what does that do to our negotiating position?
Well, is what one of the earlier commenters said, that, this is a guy that's pretty easy to figure out. You can actually get a much better deal with him by just being able to massage his ego and allow him to claim that he had a victory, because that's all that matters. It's the image, it's the optics of some form of a victory. And he has a base that doesn't look really far into these different things, so they're quite gullible when it comes to these things. And when you take a look at what has been achieved, essentially what was achieved in North Korea was a photo op and a handshake, nothing really beyond that. And he is touting that as if the nuclear crisis with North Korea has ended. This is extremely dangerous because there are actual real threats here that need to be addressed in a very effective way, and he's not doing that. So in that sense, in my view, he's really endangering the national security of the United States.
And very quickly, Malcolm, while that is going on, is it possible for the intelligence services, for the sort of, apparatuses of government that the right calls the deep state, to still be maintaining the relationships that can make this not a total catastrophe when the next president comes along?
Yes, we maintain our operational and strategic relationships with other intelligence agencies. The question is, will those other intelligence agencies trust critical information to the United States, which may infuriate Donald Trump personally? And I charge that they won't. They won't do anything that will benefit the United States if they know that it will get to the President of the United States, and he will misuse that. I'm sorry, you know, I know there's a lot of intelligence watch officers in the world who watch this program. Just they're forced to. And they themselves all know that if there is something out there which is critical to the security of the United States, but which could be compromised by the President of the United States, they won't get it.
Wow. Malcolm Nance, Kendzior Trita Parsi, thank you very much, all of you, for being here. We really appreciate it.